What are the Hugo Awards, and why am I so excited about them this year? That's what this video is about. The Hugo Awards are a set of awards given out by the World Science Fiction Convention. World Science Fiction Convention's been going on for 73 years, and I've been to 14 of them. And to one NASFIC. Now let me explain what that is. The WorldCon, or the World Science Fiction Convention, happens every year. It happens someplace in the world, frequently somewhere in North America. If they happen outside of North America, and they do frequently, then they have a North American Science Fiction Convention. So I've been to, that's called a NASFIC. So I've been to 14 World Cons and one NASFIC. I went in that, going back in 1981, I went to Denvention 2 in Denver, and that was my first World Con. I've been to LA Con 2 in Anaheim, Cactus Con 2, and that was the NASFIC in Phoenix. NOLA Con 2 in New Orleans, Northeast Con 3 in Boston, ChiCon 5, in Chicago, MagicCon in Orlando, Con Francisco in San Francisco, LA Con 3 in Anaheim, Lone Star Con in San Antonio, Buccaneer in Baltimore, ChiCon 2000, that's actually the t-shirt I'm wearing today, in Chicago, and the Millennium PhilCon in Philadelphia, Con Jose in San Jose, and TourCon 3 in Toronto, Canada. Unfortunately, the last one I've been to was in 2003 because I've had some interesting things going on in my life that have pulled me away from going to World Cons, but I went to a lot of them, 14 of them. I enjoy them. They're a lot of fun, and this year, the reason I'm excited about them is for the first time in a long time, some of the authors I've actually read are on the nominees, which there's a whole controversy about that. But for me, very personally, it makes it interesting because I have read some of these authors, which hasn't been true for a long time. I don't read some kinds of science fiction. I like science fiction that interests me, and my interests are very different. Now, down below, I'll list the nominees for the best novel. There are 5 of them every year. They put out, they put 5, and when you vote, you have 6 options. It's a little bit unusual in that you rate all your options 1 through 6, and the 6th and one of the options is no award. So you can actually say, I would rather give no award than to give it to this person by putting them higher, which I have done. I have voted for the Hugo Awards. So what happens is that it's, and in fact, that's where I found some of the books that I've read and I go, these are awful. Why the hell did they get nominated for a Hugo? Because they're worthless piles of dreck. And that has been true of some of the books that have been in my opinion, they've been nominated for World Cons. But this year, 2 books made it to the, at least 2 authors made it. I haven't read these books. I'm planning on doing that. And, but it's Lines of Departure by Marco Close and The Dark Between the Stars by Kevin J. Anderson. Now let me see. I gotta pull something over here from to see if you can actually see this. This is a stack of 7 books. This is the series by Kevin J. Anderson, and I remember when they came out. Well, I didn't buy them when they first came out. I started off with The Hidden Empire and The Forest of the Stars, and I was looking back through my records on Amazon, and I think I bought the first 2 at a Barnes & Noble. that there's one actually near where I live, and I remember going to the store and picking up a couple of books. That I picked up the 2, and then I ordered the rest of the other 5 of the series through Amazon, and I ordered them fairly quickly because I was reading them because they were interesting. I kicked myself for not actually putting a review on Amazon because I should have, because that's what I do. That's the way I tell if I like the book and go back. And when I saw The Lines of Departure is not the first book in the series by MacLeod, and I looked at my review and I'd actually put stars, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So I know that I like those 2 authors. The rest of the authors I'm not really sure of, and I'll be honest, most of the time the authors I really like never get nominated. They just have never been nominated because it's always been too political. Oh, it's political this year because there was a move by Gamergate and Sad Puppies. And I'm sorry, but the Hugos have always been political. People don't understand how political it has been. If you've been to conventions, you know. And, you know, it says it was the politics that went on and the fights that went on behind the scenes. And it's sort of a shame that some of the people who are no longer with us who really know the ins and outs. I remember going to a convention and having Jack Chalker talking about the real history behind the scenes that a lot of people didn't know about. You know, it's like the years that they tried to prohibit, oh God, now my mind went blank, when they tried to stop Isaac Asimov from attending because of the politics. People don't remember that, but I remember the discussion, and Chalker was talking about it. Unfortunately, Jack Chalker's passed away, but he says that there were years when they didn't want to let Isaac Asimov, now viewed as one of the pillars of science fiction, one of the founders, but there were times when his politics, they didn't want to let him in. And people don't remember these stories. And they said, oh, the politics is new. No, it's not new. It's always been there. And, you know, it says that some of the fun things that have happened at science fiction conventions with the politics that have been going on. I remember, and unfortunately I don't think he's passed, but Jared Purnell was always very political at the conventions, and doing things that today would get him in deep, deep trouble. He got up and I remember in one of the panels, he pulled out the copy of Kipling and read Gunga Din. Now, for those of you who don't know, go look up Gunga Din, and he read Gunga Din, which today people would freak out and go, it's racist, it's terrible. And yes, it is racist in an interesting way. And I'll leave it to you to go take a look at that. But it was hearing people talk about that, to hear Joe Handelman get up there and discuss, you know, various things, and hear the discussions about his kill bracelet. If you that's a whole bizarre discussion. But then sometimes you had some memorable fights at the convention. Harlan Ellison was notorious for doing, when he went to some of the World Cons, getting into very political, very vocal arguments with other people. So this whole thing about people today, oh, that they went in and pushed it in there. Because Tor Books is now owned by Macmillan, and they're pushing various things. I remember just before, I guess I went to the one convention, and it was just as Tor Books was being sold. Tom Doherty had established it, and Tor Books was actively trying to bring in new authors. And they were going after the market that Baen Books had founded. For those of you who don't know, I'll mention something. Baen Books, for me, was interesting. I was in the military. I was in Germany, And Stars and Stripes in there had a science fiction section that was about the size of one of the shelf for the entire science fiction section in a Stars and Stripes stores was about the size of one shelf, maybe two. Not a very good selection at all. And Jim Bain found several authors, and one of them that I very well remember was David Drake, and he published Hammer Slammers. And he got that in Stars and Stripes. And I remember Jim Bain talking about that because he had actually got science fiction books into Stars and Stripes, which is the military system, and was doing well. And up to that point in time, you didn't have military science fiction. You didn't have science fiction that talked about, you know, the military in glowing terms, with a handful of exceptions. You had Starship Troopers by Heinlein, and so on. But what happens is then you had David Drake's Hammer Slammers, and people in the military went ape over this. These were books that were aimed at them, that were they respected the military, they taught the military, and the military science fiction subgenre was the whole key there. And it was through the PX system in Stars and Stripes books that Bain book. I remember him talking about that at some of the conventions. He's passed away now, which is a shame. But he talked about that. And Tor, which was Tom Doherty, was coming in and trying to give a slightly different view on military science fiction, but going after that. Today, Tor, I don't think, will touch science fiction, military science fiction. And it's because they've changed. Tom Doherty sold it, and it's evidently through the years it has changed, and it's got much more, it's leaning, either I guess the proper phrase, it's much more liberal views than it was before. But the politics that was in those, that were constant battles. You had science fiction discussions, and it was fun to see the discussions of, this is many years ago, about Brilliant Pebbles and Thor, and I think it was Project Thor. This is talking about that, and you had NASA, people from NASA and things like that. For those of you who don't know, Project Thor was the concept is that you take depleted uranium rods about 10 feet long, and you put a rocket engine behind them, and you put a stack of them into a satellite, and you encases it. You launch it into orbit, and then it encases itself. When it gets into orbit, it releases foam and encases itself in like 5, 10, 20 feet of foam. Doesn't really matter because you can make foam. You know, foam weighs very little. You put a very little nitrogen in with it, and whatever the chemical reaction creates foam. So you create this, quote, hardened satellite in orbit. And then when you need to, you blow the foam off and launch these depleted uranium rods at high acceleration down from orbit to hit a target. And the idea is, yeah, the reason that they're so long is that they will burn up about at least half, maybe 3/4 of the way coming through the atmosphere, and then they will hit something. And the argument is that it will kill any bunker that's out there. And these were discussed at Worldcon. And there were panels on them, and pictures, and discussions, and you had the people who were freaking out about, oh, we can't talk about things like that. But you had a lot of people, you had scientists, you had everything that was there. I am very enthusiastic about Worldcon this year. And in fact, because for the first time in a while, if my finances work out, I may be able to go. Hopefully I can. I haven't been able to do that for quite a while. But it's looking at the fact that there are a couple of books that are out there that I will probably try and read before the votes come out, because the ballots haven't been voted. And but it's the Hugo Awards. The Hugo Awards ceremony is a long ceremony, and it's always you can go there and see the masquerade and the dances, which are there. I don't dance, but it's always fun to see There's a lot of culture in the World Science Fiction Convention. And the fact that it's got a lot of politics going on, okay, people don't know. It always has had politics, because you've had the people who push things one way and the people who push things another way. And science fiction has a history. You have science fiction and fantasy. You look at Animal Farm. Animal Farm is a great book. It's a wonderful book, but it was written in a way to point out something that the author didn't like. 1984, another interesting book. Brave New World. All these books have been challenges to various establishments. So people go, oh, there's politics involved with the Hugo Awards this year. And I laugh and I go, there's always politics been in the Hugo Awards. And, you know, it's interesting. The fun thing, I congratulate all the authors. I remember one year when one of the at the Hugo Awards, somebody got up and he says, I can't remember what author it was, and he says, yeah, they tell me that a Hugo nomination is worth like $100,000. And this is years ago, so it's worth probably where it would be worth a lot more. But he says, I haven't seen it. And what happens is that, so it's fun because I'm seeing a couple of people whose books I've actually read and liked be nominated, which is a big change. And I can't underestimate that, because there have been people who, I won't name names, but they've been nominated, that they've won, and I go, I wouldn't read those. You know, I'd prefer to go read the soup can label than read those books, and because they don't appeal to me. And some of this stuff, it appeals to me, and it took a group come in there to sort of turn some things, people's on their heads, and I'm happy about it, because it's fandom, and people don't understand just how political fandom always has been. If you've ever been behind the scenes and see what's going on, and the fights between you know, what authors you like, what authors you don't like, and variety of things, and you meet some and hear some wonderful things. I encourage everyone. I'm going to put a link to the World Science Fiction Convention. It's the 73rd World Science Fiction Convention in Spokane, Washington. It's Wednesday, August 19th through Sunday, the 23rd of August, 2015. And you work it out. It's like, membership is like about $200, I think is what they said. And hotel rooms are about 130, 140, maybe 150 out if you include tax and everything else like that. That's, it's not a cheap vacation, but it's there. Once you go, you meet people, you remember people, you have photographs, you know, things like that. It'll be, you know, it's always been there. I was actually looking back when one of my old conventions, I was digging through my notes, and at one point I had an HP Jornada with a keyboard, which is a little teeny, like a PDA, what you'd call today, with a keyboard that I took all notes that I typed up while I was at one of the panels, and I was looking through those today as I was preparing for this. Yep, and it's always a lot of fun. And the stories that happen and the things that go on, you know, and no hotel can handle a Worldcon. It's the standard phase that's there because they don't expect what Worldcons are like. What I mean by that is it's the horror stories of the food poisoning that always happens at Worldcon every year, and you go, what do you mean food poisoning? Why would I want to go there? It's the hotel, or the hotels variety, restaurants. They can't handle it. And what I mean by that is that at Worldcon, everything, you're always talking. It's an intellectual exercise. You get to meet other people. You get to talk with other people. It's fascinating. So going to have something to eat, you don't care if you wait in line. And you don't care if you wait in line for a long time, because you plan out your schedule or tentatively, but if you're in an interesting conversation, you'll change your schedule because it's all sort of vacation. Everybody's there, and what happens is that the hotel restaurants freak out because you'll have a line there that will go on for 3 hours, and they've never seen 3-hour lines where people, are there and they're sitting there talking, they're playing, they're sitting down in line, they're playing games, they're reading books, and it goes on. And what happens is that it's always they rush, and the busboys and things don't get clean as clear as it should be, and so somebody gets sick, and then they tell you stay away from the hotel restaurants so the first couple of days they're good, and then by that time they're freaking out. I remember the worst one was going to the NASFIC in Phoenix. And anyway, there aren't many restaurants at the time. I don't know if it's still true. I haven't been to Phoenix in a long time. At the time, there weren't many restaurants in Phoenix. There had been a push to actually move them out, or because the downtown area around the convention center, there was some weird civic planning there that pushed them out, and they were trying to zone them out, and there were no restaurants in walking distance of the convention center. Most people who come to the World Science Fiction Convention fly in, maybe they drive in, they park. They don't really want to go driving. They don't rent a car. They just want someplace in walking distance. And there was the little hole-in-the-wall restaurant. It was a little Mexican restaurant. There was a bigger upscale restaurant, and then there was a little hole-in-the-wall restaurant. And the hole-in-the-wall restaurant, they sit there, and the people start showing up for the NASFIC, and the line is growing, and the line is growing, and he says, and the restaurateur, somebody says, "What time do you open for breakfast in the morning?" And mind you, this is normally over Labor Day weekend, and he goes, "Breakfast in the morning? What do you mean?" He says, "Yeah, we got this convention going on for 4 days." And he goes, "We weren't planning on being open." "Well, you're not planning on open." And he says, "So what happened was they opened up. They were open every day. They sold out of food. Every day they would load up with everything they could, and they sold out. And it was great. Their food was good. It was cheap, and the lines were tremendously long because you'd go there. There weren't many places to eat that were in walking distance. But you learn you meet other people in line, you talk, you have games, there are a whole bunch of things going on, and it's a lot of fun if you're into that. But it's a literature science fiction convention. If you're expecting all the movies and things like that, yeah, there are things like that, but most of that has moved to other conventions. Dragon Con, other places have taken a lot of the media away, and it's now focused much more on just books and literature. And if you don't read the science fiction, you won't enjoy it, because that's what it is. If you're, it's as if you're just into the movies or into comic books, there are comic books and discussions like that. But what happens if you're just into movies? People go, you're actually gonna look down. I'll be honest. There's a bit of snobbery, because you want people who the Worldcon is for people who read and people who enjoy reading. So if you're one of those people and you like science fiction, I highly encourage you, go to take a look and see if you can clear your schedule and go to the World Science Fiction Convention. And it's interesting that this year it's got some press for various reasons, but as the saying goes, there's no such thing as bad press. And for me, it's really got me psyched, because there's people on the list whose books I've read, which hasn't happened in a long time. And so so I hope you enjoyed that, or hopefully I'm animated and if you enjoyed that, and if you like the video, give me a thumbs up. I'd love to hear your comments about this. I'll put some things in the description, in the comments. I'll list all the links to Amazon for all the books, for the novels. There are a whole bunch of other categories, but the novels are the big ones, let's be honest. and some of the hashtags. There's sadpuppies and gamergate, but this is about the World Science Fiction Convention and what the Hugos are, and they're just part of the event that is Worldcon. And I'm a big fan, and like I said, I've been to 14 of them, and looking forward to going to another one. So hope you enjoy this. If you like this, subscribe, and maybe I'll do some more discussions about literature and books and what are some good books to read. Thank you.